It's back! It's back on!
Welcome back. You're watching Azure Lowlands. Up next, Lars Klint.
Bugger it! Behold, the Quantum Last Jumper 3000. Azure. Finally.
And the lights come on, you can't see a damn thing. Hi, I'm Lars, but we'll get to that. Did you have a good day? Yeah, feedback. I'm sorry, did you have a good day? Yeah. Ah, that's better. Yeah. Oh, we got smoke as well. That's fantastic. So, I did make it all the way from Australia. So, here we are. It was not real. I made it up. It's okay. Okay, so, I had this idea for a long time to do this talk, and I thought you were the absolute perfect audience for my test. Now I can't see anything, really. So I'm going to go through, there's a bit of history lesson in this. There's a bit of us screwing things up as developers. Yep, but let me start with this guy. Does anyone know who that is? Anyone? If you put your hand up, I can't see it anyway, so just yell out. Anyone know who that is? I think I heard one person say it. Yeah, this guy is called Alexander Fleming. He's Scottish. He does not live anymore. This is a long time ago. He's a microbiologist. So once I set the name Alexander Fleming, maybe a few of you will know what I'm about to talk about. But he was doing some studying in... he was trying to figure out this pathogen that was a common cause in the 20s. This is 1928. Of skin diseases and respiratory illnesses and all these nasty things. And he's doing some testing on it, and he's got all these cultures. I mean, you can see on the picture before, right? Look at the amount of stuff he's got. This is what we did in the 20s, apparently. And he's looking for this I don't know, that thing. And this is what he's researching, right? He's doing all of these experiments, and he's doing these cultures, and he's doing things I have no idea what are. And then he goes on holiday. And I'm sure it looked like that. It must have. So he goes on holiday, somewhere exotic, I'm sure. He's Scottish. It can only get better, right? Any Scottish people here? Okay, it can only get better. And he leaves all the experiments behind because they take a long time, they can do their own thing, and he can just go on holiday. I mean, it sounds like a beautiful gig. Then while he's away, and I'm sure this is what it looks like, actually this is Swimsuit Edition 1928. I did find this on the internet. So while he's away, one of the cultures gets compromised. Right, so he's got all these different petri dishes, he's got all these different experiments, and it starts suddenly, one of them has this fungus in it. And it's only one dish, and the culture that he had for this staff full of that thing was dead. The fungus had killed it. And he's like, that's funny. That wasn't supposed to happen. And he did actually say that. He said, that's funny, which I think is hilarious. This magic microbiologist and is doing all these experiments. You go, oh, that's funny. Yeah, anyway, I like that quote, if it is. So what, in fact, what he had discovered, does anyone know? Thank you. Okay, we're not completely uneducated. No, it was penicillin, right? And we all know penicillin today, and we love it, and we eat it all the time. Maybe, I don't know. It cures lots of stuff, right? In fact, in World War II, it was one of the most important things that they used for soldiers. But what most people forget is that when was World War II? 40s, right? He invented it, or discovered it, in 1928. All throughout the 30s, people thought he was an absolute crackpot. Like, no one believed it. No one had any time for him. He didn't get anything published in papers, which is what you do if you're in the medical profession, apparently. There was no support. He didn't have anyone that was on his side, essentially. And yet he kept on pushing. And then in the late 30s, or very late 30s and the early 40s, it happened. And now, what would we do without penicillin today? We'd be dead, right? Like it is that important. So, hi everybody, my name is Lars. I work for Pluralsight. Have you heard of Pluralsight? Yeah. They gave me shoes. So, we'll get to Pluralsight a bit later. It's my job. I'm a Microsoft MVP for Azure Lowlands. Hey. Oh God, okay. This is gonna warm you up. I thought you already warmed up the whole day. And I do have a YouTube channel, which I think is hilarious. It's my creative outlet for all sorts of home automation. Because I live on a farm in Australia. Yeah, I do. And that is a llama that is on my land. I don't own the llama, but it eats my grass, and we all win. And I get to put them on the internet, right? So yeah, I do a lot of home automation, networking stuff that isn't Azure and my day job when I get to geek out on YouTube. So yeah, it could be a live feed. It's roughly what it looks like now, because it's winter. So has anyone been to Australia? Yeah. I know Sarah has. Where's Sarah? Woo! Okay, what month did you go, if anyone? Was it December, January? Yeah. Clever. Because you know what season it is now. Anyone know? Meh, more specific? It's drop bear season. Seriously, people. So if you go now, this is the official warning from the Department of Dangerous Fauna Management. I thought I'd just play on the vein of everything kills you in Australia.
It's true.
Not everything.
Drop bears do.
There are German tourists. There's some Germans here I know, like, what? I know. All right, okay. So what I want to talk about today is a little bit to do with penicillin, obviously. It's, I've got some stories about how we, as software developers, absolutely screwed things up, right? People are like, I didn't, it wasn't me. No, we did. So I'm going to ask a bunch of questions. What could this be a representation of in software? What event would you think? What was that? What? Say again? DDoS. Chaos. Yeah, okay, that's a bit general, but in a specific event. All right, if I say Y2K, so now we're getting somewhere, right? Because this was the image that we all had in our head. Well, not our software developers, but the general public. Am I right? And there'll be some 22-year-olds here going, what's Y2K? But anyway, so basically Y2K was humanity going a bit mental over the fact that we were missing 2 digits in the year. So 99 would become 00, or 1900 effectively. So there were some interesting stories that came out of this. One was a guy that collected 12 cases of spam 288 tins of spam, because I don't know. But it took him 20 years to eat them, and yeah, I'm not going to say his nationality. I already got in trouble for that. There were some children that were born in 2000 that were registered as being born in 1899, so they were 100 years old when they were born. There's actually, I read about this, there was a Danish lady that turned 106 in 2000, and she got called back to school. Oh, that was pretty good. And there was a guy in Germany, I'm not picking on Germany, oh, I am, who got a deposit of $6 million equivalent on the 31st of December, 1899. Hooray. So these are all funny, humorous stories. They're also like, yeah, because we all know nothing happened, right? Well, exactly, there's a well. And I've got a couple of so there was, I don't know if it was all, because they don't disclose this, but a bunch, at least, of US spy satellites actually stopped working. And they stopped, I like this bit, they stopped working because the patch for the Y2K bug failed. Woo! Well done. And the other side of it, I don't know where that is, but it's in Japan, let's say, Japanese nuclear plants actually stopped working as well. They stopped having telemetry for some of their reactors. I'm not sure what telemetry, but it sounds bad. Like, I would like to know that they have telemetry on nuclear stuff. So that wasn't supposed to happen. But what happened, though? Does anyone know what happened? Come on. Nothing. Right? But not really. Was this overhyped? Absolutely. Was it completely bonkers? Yeah, probably. But why didn't nothing happen? Why was it always okay? Because of us. Right. Okay, is there any managers here? I should have to ask. But software developers at least, right? So I think we need an award, and I think we need to applaud ourselves for fixing the Y2K bug. Woo! If you're watching in the overflow room, I can hear you not clapping as well. Just saying, so come on. Yeah, so what did we learn from this? Well, we learned awareness of legacy systems, and here's the question: when does a system become legacy? Thank you. A minute it goes into production, right? But no, we need to be aware of the legacy systems, and a lot of knowledge came from this particular incident. We need to be better at risk management, right? Obviously. There was a lot of stuff that could have gone wrong, but we fixed it. Hey. And then we need to realize that our greatest fear was actually not aliens or asteroids, it was 2 digits, which I thought was hilarious. And then, of course, we became much more aware of testing and how that's it. No, where am I kidding? We still don't do any testing. Oh, dear. All right, let's. So, who here has lost money on something software related? If it's crypto, you can say yes, that's software. Come on.
Domain names.
Hey?
Domain names.
Domain names.
Yeah, you buy them, you don't use them.
Yeah, no one here buys domain names, do we? It's like a software development afflicted thing. It's like, oh, I like that one too. Oh, okay, .dev, yay. No, you're right. Have you ever lost $440 million in 45 minutes? Sucks to be you. But anyway, let's move back a step. So, let me ask, who is a software developer? You can put your hand up in the overflow if you're in there. I can still see it, sort of. Okay. What's the rest of you? Anyway. Hey? Managers, get out. That's a developer. You can be a developer, Sarah. Sarah says, I'm security, but that's still in my, honorary. Okay, who's familiar with feature flags? Good, all right, cool. You might see where this is headed. Who tests all their code? Yeah, liar. No way. That does never happen. All right, sorry, we'll move on. Who reuses code? Because it's what we do, right? And who deploys on a Friday afternoon? Really? Oh, geez. All right. I love that there was like 40 hands go up. Yeah, fuck it. Yeah, of course we do. So, geez. All right. So what happened is that during the development of a new trading algorithm, I'm going to have to read my notes for this because there's a lot of details. There was an old unused piece of code which was brought back online. Someone copied code and yeah. Sarah's already like going, oh, security, I told you. And this code started sending erroneous orders on 150 different stocks. Yeah. Buying high and selling low. Woo. And I imagine it was something like complete manic. But we'll get into a lot more details on this because this is an amazing story. So this company we call Knight Capital Group. Has anyone heard of this? Oh, there are a couple. Okay. Because usually no one either. It's a bit like there's a system in Melbourne called Mikey, which is your tap on, tap off public transport card. No one will ever admit to have worked on Mikey. So like, no software developers I've ever met in all of Melbourne, never. Not a single one has ever worked on it because it was a piece of crap, right? Anyway, I've never met anyone that admitted to working on this either, probably for good reason. Yeah, they lost $440 million in 45 minutes. Whoops. Okay, so what actually happened? So they had an algorithmic routing software thing, which is that, I think. Does it? Yeah, I don't know what that is. But something stock trading thing, right? High-speed algorithm routing software for the New York Stock Exchange, and they intended to replace this old unused piece of code with something new, which is, we do that all the time. And what they actually did, this is real footage from the deployment process, is that they deployed the new code to 7 out of 8 servers. Hey, I can always hear the, oh. And what they did was that they reused some of this code for a new feature flag, right? So what happened is that they had these 7 servers going, hey, we're doing the thing, and it's the new, and we're trading, and we're doing, hey, woohoo. And then there was this 8th server going, what the fuck? what, hey? Right? And it misinterpreted the commands of the new code, but because they had reused the feature flag, the 8th server thought they was doing the right thing, because it was just, oh, it's on, sweet. What they had inadvertently turned on was something called the power peg. I'm assuming it's that. I don't know. I don't know what a power peg is. But what happened is that this 8th server started buying high and selling low incredibly fast. Like really, really, really fast. Something like 1,000 transactions a second times 45 minutes. Right? Yeah. So, that was the best I could find. Yeah, that was not supposed to happen. So what did we learn from that? Lots, you're being an idiot. So there's the dangers of undead code, right? I like this term undead code. Have you ever come across that? Anyone? It's code that you think is not being used and you forgot about it, but it's not dead. It's sitting over there and it's ready. And there are tons of this stuff in our code because who has just commented out a function because you didn't need it anymore? Or even worse, a reference to that function. Right, exactly, right? So stuff like that just sits in our code and it just becomes a tumor almost. And this is what happened, exactly what happened. So, this is the raised finger of you need to tidy up your code base, but it's a bit like testing. Works, move on, right? We never do. Always have safety checks, obviously in this case. Like it was a pretty blatant error not deploying to all of the servers. Like that should have been an easy thing to check. It only took them 45 minutes to figure it out. Exactly. But it can be really, really detrimental for us as well, right? It's our livelihood as well. And software can be explosive, right? we tend to deal with software as numbers and letters and compilers and whatnot, but there's real impacts on people's lives. And I think that's one of the real key messages for this particular thing. They tried to save the company, but it didn't work, right? So the whole company folded because of this small error. Trivial error, really. And then, of course, breaking the bank got a whole new term, right? Rigorous pre-deployment tests are needed. And this is where I think there was IT ops pro sysadmin people in the room as well. That's probably why you didn't say you were developers. But we got to work together to get these things out the way, which I think is hilarious. There's something called DevOps, because isn't that what we do together anyway? But anyway, that's why we can't define DevOps, by the way, in case you look up the definition of DevOps, because there isn't one. Okay, so let's have a little intermission. Hi, I'm Lars. I'm from Pluralsight. If you want, you can scan the QR code. You get free 30-day access. And every time you don't, a kitten will die. No, this is it's actually not bad. You don't have to put a credit card in anything. So if you want free, I'm going to leave that there for a second. I'm going to have a drink of water. Come on. Yeah, I'll assume if you're not scanning, it's because you already have a membership. But yeah, come and talk to me after if you want to know more about what we do, etc. That's not what the talk is about. I do have a trivia question. Where do you think this is? Where would you think? Like, come on, top of head. Where do you think? Switzerland. Yeah, that's 80 minutes from my house. Yeah, we can go skiing in Australia. That's Mount Buller. Mount Buller.
Oh, that's Buller.
Yeah. You do need a second mortgage to go skiing, but you can. It is horrendously expensive, but at least we have the option. So there you go. Today's trivia about Australia. We have drop bears and ski resorts. All right, I want to talk about space. Anyone into space? Space nerds? That was very woo! Yeah, space. This is the Mars Climate Orbiter. That was one of two satellites or spacecrafts that were launched in '99. The other one was I'll make sure to get this right, the Mars Polar Lander, so the Climate Orbiter, the Polar Lander. And this was a mission between the two vessels to map a whole bunch about Mars. Right, so one would go, obviously, to Polar Lander, kind of gives the name away, and you have the Climate Orbiter, which would go around Mars and pick up signals from the Polar Lander, and they would do magic stuff together and figure out much more things about Mars, which would be amazing. So the idea was that the lander would land, and the orbiter would come into a, what's it called? I can't remember the terminology, but a self-sustaining orbit around Mars, right? Geosynchronous, I guess, yeah. Not so much geosynchronous because anyway. But self-sustaining, right? So it was only about a few hundred kilometers up. I think it was 421 kilometers up. So low Mars orbit, LMO, LE. And that was in '99. So about December, they would get there in September, and by December they would have the orbit and they could do stuff. Not quite what happened. I thought it would be subtle, I guess not. So they put this spacecraft into what was called a Hohmann transfer orbit, which I don't know what is, and it's not relevant, but it's a good word. And then, a series of corrections, and they would get in, and they would then go behind Mars, and it would come back, and they would get control of it again, and everything would be sweet. They lost signal. Yeah, the orbiter went behind Mars, and then nothing. They never got the signal back. So, here's what happened. Remember, this is us doing this, okay? This is software developers. Hey? Sorry? Oh, okay. So, this makes sense, right? You send force, because I don't understand all the maths about it, but you calculate force about when you go around a planetary orbit. And this was basically their assumption. Force equal force. Sounds reasonable? No? Why not? Sorry? Sounds good. Oh, okay, good. Yep, you're wrong. But thanks for volunteering. So what actually happened is that, let's add units to this, okay? Ooh, I can feel it, right? So one team was measuring force in pound force, and one team was measuring in Newton. So, again, my notes here. 1 pound force is 4.4482 Newton. So they had a factor of 4.4482 wrong. So, meh. And I think it's pretty common that we have these assumptions because we work with people on the same project and we have the same idea what's going to happen. And then in this case, it was an American team and a European team, and they assumed that the other one was using their unit, right? Because us Europeans go, of course you're going to use metric. Why would you not? But Americans, everything is imperial, right? And they go, well, of course you're going to use imperial. Why not? And this assumption obviously went kaboom. So instead of having a 421 kilometer orbit, which is a different number in miles, it was 140 kilometers, roughly. So what happened is it just crashed, right? Completely just went in and bang. So you're getting used to the format now. What did we learn? Lost in translation? Absolutely. Right, I think today we would classify this as a classic example of miscommunication. It seems so obvious because today we would probably not make that mistake, but that's because we'd made it there. Right? Thorough documentation, especially on large projects, it is really important. Is it boring? Oh yeah. Who here as a developer loves writing documentation? Yeah, I like that there was like half a hand. But no, we don't, right? It's not the most interesting part of our job. It doesn't feel very fulfilling, but my God, it's important, right? Yes, we have developed tools that will do most of it for us, but it's a bit like ChatGPT. It gets it wrong quite a few times. And then, of course, standardization, which seems so obvious again. If you're a software developer that started in the last 10 years, you have a million libraries to help you out. If I started in something called Modular 2, yeah, good luck. Right? There's nothing standard. Like string, I think the string type was maybe a standard library, but that was about it, right? So yeah, standardization is one of the things that came out of one of these incidents like this, that we need to have it. And then something called proactive verification, which I had actually never heard of. Does anyone know what that means? Sorry? What things? Testing, yeah, sort of, but it's continually making sure things are right? Continuous verification, like you're constantly doing, you're always testing to make sure that your hypotheses and your assumptions are correct. That was actually a lot, I learned that bit. All right. Who uses AWS? I don't know, we're at an Azure conference. Really? Like 2 people? 3? Wow, that's amazing. All right, the rest of you, get them. No. Sorry?
I also use Azure.
You also use, yeah. No, I know. Yeah, you're multi-cloud. Good luck. So I'm assuming you may have heard of AWS, like the S3 service on AWS. Yeah, bit like Azure Storage. S3 is simple storage service. I love AWS naming. So the idea is, that you have a service where you just put whatever, like Azure Storage. It'll store absolutely everything. S3 is the same, right? But how do you find these things? You need metadata, right? You need to know where to look for the thing. So just because you store it on some piece of hardware, doesn't mean you can find it without some sort of service, which is the metadata. And often we think those are the same thing, and we just have them as all Azure Storage. But for S3, it wasn't quite the case. What do you think happens when access to S3 breaks? The world ends. Exactly. Thank you. It's a bit like the first slide, right, for your Y2K, but for real. So on the 28th of February 2017, that's exactly what happened. In East US 1, which is like the biggest AWS region ever, the service failed. And the service that failed was the billing system of S3. Woohoo, I can hear you excited. Yeah, billing, yui. And because it had some maintenance done to it, so it failed. But it also shut down the metadata service, the location information. And without any of this, none of S3 worked for that particular region, right? And what it took down was Quora, Instagram, Trello, American Airlines, IMDb, and a whole lot of others. You can look up the rest of them if you want. And it was out for 4 hours. And we think, 4 hours? How long is 4 hours in internet time? It's not just long, it's actually infinite. It just never seems to end. Right? 4 hours is an enormous amount of time for have something to not be online in the cloud. That's the next 5 minutes, by the way. That was the best GIF I could find of infinity. So what do you think happened? Does anyone know what the cause of this was? It is as silly as you think, yes. Someone what?
Pull the plug or
Pull the plug. Well, that could have, no, not quite. That doesn't take 4 hours to put the plug back in. Someone made a typo. Someone was debugging part of the system, and as part of some console or query, there's a whole like post-mortem thing from AWS on it, they put in the too high a number of servers to shut down. That's it. So I don't know how many it was. Let's say it was like 2 to 22 or something. But what happened is that they shut down way too many for the system to actually cope, and the whole thing broke. Just for a typo. Someone going in debug console. Woo! Yeah, that was a software developer. That was not supposed to happen. So we did get from this a focus on redundancy. And we take sort of for granted. And by the way, Azure is not immune because we just had an outage on, I can't remember which service it was, but like start of June. Not because of a typo though, I don't think. But it does happen, right? But if we can have redundancy, and so when you build Azure architectures, is redundancy part of the conversation? Yeah, it should be, right? It's really important because we create services that people want to use, well, we hope. But if they don't work, people are not going to use them. So redundancy is a big part of not just the deployment of it, but the architecture of it. And using cloud or Azure makes it a lot easier, absolutely. A lot of redundancy is already built into the whole platform, but we still need to take responsibility for that. That's that whole shared responsibility model that hopefully you are familiar with. If not, we should do a talk on that. So we got an increased focus on redundancy. We need to do failover strategies much better. And AWS, to their credit, actually did this. S3 has never gone down since. Thank God. They still have public buckets, sure, but they're not broken. And then we got better error handling and input validation, such as you can't just put 22 servers shut down or whatever happened. Right? It's just not possible. So we do need, and those are the things that came out of this. And I hope you're taking this away from it, that we screwed things up royally as software developers, but the world's actually better now because we did. Like, should we have not done it? Sure, but it happened, but we learned a lot from it. And we realized that simple services are horribly complex underneath, right? If the billing system for a service can take down its metadata server, what? Right, so there is some complexity around that. All right. Next question. Who has ever copy-pasted code? Come on, that's all of you, seriously. Right. It's just the difference. We used to copy it from Stack Overflow, now we copy it from ChatGPT. But we still copy it, right? It's how we do code. It's how we learn. Actually, I don't mind copy-pasting. But anyone see what's wrong with this? There's a hint there. When is SSL has HA1.final called? When does that happen? Never. Right? Guess who wrote this? That was just uncalled for. No, I did not. Apple did. Yeah. This is part of the iOS code, I believe. But being Apple, they never released any statement about what happened or why, or if anyone was affected. I'm betting there was, because they found out. But yeah, the code just continues to execute, even if it was supposed to fail or whatever. It just goes to that fail no matter what, right? Poof. And so what came out of this is that the bug affected all Apple devices, pretty much, iOS, iPad. I don't think it was the watch. And leaving basically millions of users vulnerable, and they didn't even know, right? In this case, it was man-in-the-middle attacks that they were vulnerable to, and most people were, but that never happens. It does. And the problem is that the attacker just needs to get into one device, and it's a problem, right? And of course, there's a brand thing. Like Apple devices is generally considered to be some of the most secure and most safe. And you can fight me for that opinion if you want. Having said that, I don't own any Apple devices. But yeah, they are very secure. And this is a problem. At least we immediately got an update. Woo, another update. Who here updates their devices all the time? That's all of us. Come on, we're nerds. Seriously? Yeah, we do. But the general user does not, right? So that's, again, problem. But they did promptly release an update and a patch for it. I mean, it wouldn't be hard. Just take out, there we go. Take out that line, right, we're done. But they probably have to find it too. So this is, well, it's an interesting one because this was a thing that should never have gone through, like most of the other things, but I mean, two teams not talking together probably. But this, a simple test would have picked that up, right? A simple test would have picked that up. So we learned code reviews became even more critical. Does anyone, and this is a serious question this time, does anyone not do code reviews? And if so, I'd love to know why. Because I have come across a few institutions and organizations that don't, because they think it's too slow. Oh, yeah. The relative swift response became almost an industry standard. I think we are, as an industry, very good at patching things in general. Whether, as Sarah said this morning, we're good at actually applying the patches, meh, not so much. But we do release them pretty quick. And for some reason, there was, I wasn't part of this, but in the C language, the Objective-C language community, there was massive discussions about the use of curly braces, because they reckon that would have at least, made it obvious. Okay, yeah, that's interesting, that's what I thought. And why fail just once when you can do it twice? All right, so my point of this, and I'm firmly aware that I'm between you and beer, is that we screw up all the time, right? We do. And if you haven't, either you didn't notice or it's coming, so enjoy it. No, we do. It's just a part of the gig. We do innovative things, we try new things. Everything changed so fast, especially Azure, holy moly. I'm an Azure MVP and I have no idea what's new. Right? There's so much new stuff all the time. I can just ask ChatGPT now, but anyway. And we screw up all the time, but we got to own it. And we learn from it, and we get much better from it because our analytical minds wants to know what happened. And I find that very refreshing. I find that incredibly motivating, I think. But please don't. Right? We hear about this thing, and it's like, it's in movies, and move fast and break things, and please don't. It never works, right? This whole move fast and break things is a fallacy. And I think with that, yeah, I'm going to leave you. There's music and beer in just a minute, and it's going to be amazing. It's Hank will tell me, but it's a Woodstock tribute band. Is that right? I think, which sounds amazing. There's barbecue, there's beer. So thank you very much. I hope you had an awesome day. Let's go and have some barbecue.